Hey everyone, this is Chris from the GMR show. You're going to notice some changes in audio quality during this episode due to some equipment issues that were beyond our control while recording. We were able to work around these and still make the episode we wanted. We hope you enjoy our special episode 11, celebrating 31 years of GMR.
You are listening to GMR Radio. And now, the Great Movie Radio Show.
All right, everyone. Quiet on the set. Places. We've got a show to make here. Are Chris and Gabe ready? They are. Okay, everyone. In 3, 2, 1, and... Coming to you live from sunny Orlando, Florida, it's the Great Movie Radio Show, a movie talk podcast starring Chris and Gabe.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Great Movie Radio Show. This is Chris Schneider coming to you from sunny, well rainy, Orlando, Florida currently. I have with me today, and this is a wonderful new thing for us, our new co-host. He did episodes 5 and 6. It was 5 and 6 with me, and one of my good friends. He has returned because we have decided to have a co-host. I need somebody that can balance the yin to my yang, and Gabe Jaramillo.
Hey guys,
has
I'm
taken
yang,
on the call.
Or yang, whatever you want to call me.
You're.
we're the yin yangs.
Oh man, so. Gabe, welcome as our co-host, my co-host, and so you and I get to be the, I wouldn't call it Batman and Robin, because Robin was a sidekick. We're, I don't know, we could be,
Thelma and Louise.
Butch and Sundance Kid. Thelma and Louise, there we go, we're in it together, man, so, I'm happy to have you on the show with me, man. This is going to be wonderful, and going forward, Gabe and I will be interviewing many movie writers and maybe a few non-movie writers that have some wonderful input into the film world. You know, we'll talk about Movie Ride too. So we're going to have some fun, and it's wonderful to have you on this May 1st. We're recording before then, but today, the launch of the episode is actually the 31st birthday for not only Hollywood Studios, but our long-lost Great Movie Ride. And so our today's episode is celebrating the birthday of Movie Ride. And so we've added new questions for our guests that involve more of the Movie Ride aspect. We're still doing Around the Track and some other things that talk movies, but we're leaning or we're beginning to lean toward the Movie Ride more. And I'm excited about this because I only worked at the ride for a year, and this allows us to touch the 31 years this ride had history for. I mean, even though it closed in 2017, it's been around technically 31 years it existed. So there's still history. There's so many stories to be talked about. And, you know, CPs who passed each other in the hallway who maybe talked for 5 minutes, but there's a story there. And this gives us the opportunity to put those out into the world. And I've already talked to plenty of movie writers who are interested in coming on and have so many wonderful stories that they've shared with me, or just nutshell versions of them, that I can't wait to talk to them more in depth with I guess we'll call it a 2-on-1 conversation.
Yeah, I mean,
I got to get used to this, Gabe. It's going to be.
Yeah, I'm really excited to join, especially on my inaugural episode being the birthday of Hollywood Studios, MGM, whatever you want to call it, as well as the Great Movie Ride. You know, I spent my tenure was a little bit longer than your 1 year, but I know we have some guests who want to join us who have been there longer, and I think some of the best memories of working at Movie Ride is talking to those people who have been at the ride for so long and have, you know, amazing stories of their time from when it first opened throughout all the way until its closure. So it's going to be really awesome to hear these stories as well as learn about their favorite movies and genres.
Yeah, I agree. And like you said, you were there a lot longer than I was. And that was one reason why when you said you wanted to take on the co-host gig, on top of the fact that our episodes were fun as all can be to record, you were there a lot longer than I was. And I was looking for someone who had more of a tenure than I did. I only got to experience 1 year out of all those years of movie ride, and having someone who's had a couple more under his belt, much more than me. So it's definitely a pleasure to have you on as co-host, and I'm looking forward to the guests we're going to have coming forward. Like I said, most of them are movie writers. There'll be a few of them that are not, but there are some cool stories behind why they're on the show and what we'll be talking about with them. So I'm very excited about that.
For sure.
Well, yeah, exactly. Since we're honoring Great Movie Ride's birthday today, we've introduced some new questions to our guests that talk more about the ride. And you and I didn't get a chance to have these questions when we did your episodes because they weren't formulated yet. So we're going to give you a chance before we get to our guests to, I guess, bring you up to speed on the new stuff for the show. And it gives us a chance to, like I said, celebrate Movie Ride a bit more. What positions did you work when you were there?
So I pretty much worked all of them. So I was tour guide, gangster, bandit, trainer for both tour guide and characters, which is gangster and bandit, as well as a coordinator. And I even got to be like they called it the super trainers when we did our big TCM update and got to train everybody, which, that was fun because I had to learn tour guide, gangster, and bandit all in 2 days while everybody got like separate training for each. But yeah, so I had a lot of fun. The only thing I wish I would have done there was Hooray for Hollywood. That's the only thing that I think I missed out on. And it was for anybody who worked at Great Mover, and it was kind of just like a little, I think it was 2 to 4 hour training, and they would kind of just talk about the history of the ride and the history behind everything and the meaning behind the pictures in each scene and all that. And you kind of just like broke it down.
I don't have the best memory of my entire year there, but I want to say I did something around those lines. So it's possible I did, but maybe not. I don't know. But I was always fascinated with the history of the ride. And like I said, I don't know everything, and I'm okay with that hosting the show. The fun part is our guests who have been there the tenure get to bring those experiences and that history to us. And so together we can rule the world with Movie Ride. Yeah. How many years did you work at Movie Ride, though?
I worked there I started in 2011. So I would say I think it was like 5 years I worked there because I left for Animal Kingdom in 2016. So yeah, I worked at Movie Ride for 5 years. It's crazy.
It is crazy. That's crazy. And I had the pleasure of meeting you through my year there. I came over from Epcot before broadening my experiences at Hollywood Studios at other attractions. So I'm glad our paths crossed because
if it didn't, we wouldn't be here right now talking. It's awesome. Yeah.
I mean, we still might be, but also, yeah, probably not.
Oh my God.
One thing that I always loved about working with you, though, is no matter what position you were in, you were always a character. And I don't mean gangster or bandit. You were just always you were always like this goofy mother that I would come into work and you'd be like, and I'd be like, what the hell is wrong with this guy? And I always loved working with you. And I'm happy to have you on the show. I really am. But no, when I was thinking of asking the question, I was going to be like, where did you work at Movie Ride? Well, I was just a character always. That should have been your answer.
No, I mean, I had variety sometimes, especially during, like Christmas time. I'd be all over the place. I'd start off as a tour guide, then run over to Gangster, and then do a couple bandit shows, and then close the night as the closing coordinator. So, who needed?
Yeah, you were all over the place, but you always had fun with it. You always, even though you were a goof, you always like had this. I don't know. You had this flair to you, man.
Well, thanks. I mean, I think that's what I really liked about Great Movie Ride, and it was different from any other Spieling attraction. And I mean, I told this to my trainees all the time, especially when they were learning the script. I was like, the theme of this is the tour guide. This is you. You bring your personality to it. So don't like try to make it too extra, but also, like I don't want you to be like wild and like crazy and like fun backstage, and then get on a tour and just be like very melodramatic. So
Yeah.
it was just a fun experience. It's not like safaris where you have to give these facts, or Jungle Cruise where you have to focus on landing these jokes. Here you're giving the facts, and you make it fun and you make it your own. Where there, it's not as much. I mean, I worked at safaris and it was very much like no jokes. You give the facts, you drive, you go, and I was like,
yeah.
I was like, then that made me miss movie ride even more. Like, I miss just like having fun and being able to take the lines we were given, and even after the TCM update when our lines and our options were cut, like taking that and figuring out different ways to make it more enjoyable for the guests and make their experience fun. And it's not just, hey, here's Gene Kelly singing in the rain, literally.
Yeah.
It was like, here's Gene Kelly singing in the rain, literally, and just having fun with it. And I think that's why I really enjoyed my time there.
Getting to be yourself, yet sticking to the script was always something I enjoyed. And I regret it, but I always played around with the idea because we'll talk about it with our guest in a little bit, but I would always do Muppet, or at least Kermit the Frog voices around the attraction. And I'm not going to do it now because no. But me and a few movie writers played around with the idea that I should go around and do a show as Kermit the Frog, and I never did. And I have regrets, but I was also like nervous to do it because of like anxiety reasons. But at the same time, like inside, like I really want to do this, but I didn't think I could like land it the entire 22 minutes, so that's why I never did. And so I have regrets now that it's not around because it's like it's not here anymore. One show as Kermit would have been amazing, so I kind of wish
when I was there, if I would have heard it as a show observer, which was another position I did, I would have been like, no, cut it out. But after the fact, like, now that we don't work there, I'm like, that's awesome. And I may or may not have like done that with like my gangster shows, and we may or not have had like challenges where we had to like convince the tour guide, like convince a message like hey, you need to convince them that you have to go to the bathroom. And then I would do that during the show with them on stage, and when they come back, the other gangsters would be like, hey, well, did you realize what was going on with Gabe? And they're like, I think he was trying to he needed to go to the bathroom. I'm like, all right, he gets a point, and like stuff like that. But as a show observer, when I worked there, none of that happened. I was good. I stuck to the script. I didn't goof around.
Yeah. Because you're having to role model that aspect when you're a show observer to the other cast members, or else it gets a little too wonky.
Yeah, exactly. Because if I do that and then they see that and then I give them a note on something, they're like, "Well, you did this," and I'm like, "I know, but shut up."
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes when you take those steps, you have to leave a few things behind. What was your favorite section of Movie Ride?
Honestly, the loading dock, because
really
just like, so you had the Hollywood Hills back there, and it was like the 1920s, and it still said Hollywood Land, and it had those houses of like famous actors, and Hooray for Hollywood, you would learn about each house. And my memory is terrible, and I cannot describe any of them, but each house like was a celebrity's house, and they put it there for a reason, and it had so much history behind it. And one of my favorite parts was talking about the Hollywood Land sign to my new trainees who, either they've run the ride a couple rides and times and never noticed it, or they don't know what's going on. And I just like talked to them about the history and how they took off the land and it was about to get demolished, and celebrities came together and, put on a fundraiser to keep it, going. And just like little things like that as a guest, like you don't know that. And, as a trainee coming in your day one, you may never even have seen that. And just going behind that in the detail. And then, of course, on the catwalks, the photo of CB, and just having that there to be like, ready when you are, CB. It was something that the guests never saw unless they were like diehard and, really dug deep into the history.
I did love that. Probably about 60% of the time, you'd at least have somebody, when you did the salute to them, someone would look back like, who are they? What are they doing that?
Yeah.
At least one head that turned back like, who?
And in like, there's even like story behind the CB and like the original concept of a ride and like why that line "Ready when you are, CB" was there.
Yeah,
but we'll dive into that like another episode.
Of course, and fortunate for us, we have a shout out to Ready When You Are a CB on our new website. Which, yes, I'm plugging. I don't care. We've got a new www.thegmrshow.com site built, and it launched yesterday as of us recording this. And on our homepage, we've got a little shout out to CB on there because why not, man? We got to have that movie ride flair when we're representing. So,
exactly.
Yeah, when I asked that, or when we formulated the question, I always thought about what section inside the ride. I never thought about Doc being part of that. So when you said that, I was like, yeah, you're true.
Yeah, and to me, like especially like on day 2 when you would walk the track, that was like the center. Like, here's everything you need to know right here, and we're just gonna add on to it here. And here's this, like everything was there, and that was like the hub of the ride.
I was gonna say, yeah, and then Doc is the heart of the ride. Yeah, it's important, but I never like thought of it. I'd always thought the question was what movie inside the ride. Yeah, so that's wonderful. I mean, personally, Alien is mine just because I rarely saw it because I was never character trained, sadly. Almost.
Yeah.
No, I did get it.
Almost.
And but I never saw it really. So every time I got to, open or close the ride, right, the dead shows to close or open, or just a dead show, whenever, I loved being in that atmosphere. Or when I would do like the track walk in the opening, I loved Alien. It's my favorite horror film. So I just loved that feel that you're going in and Nostromo is there. But I would have to say, if we're counting the entire ride as a whole, pre-show was probably my favorite because you walk in and even though those crazy railings that kids would swing and clothesline each other with, I loved the pre-show because it felt like I was at an old movie theater, this old classic movie theater, and that was wonderful to just walk into. It's like you're going into the Chinese theater and watching a movie, and that was always fun to me. And I didn't even care how much the movies would loop, and I loved watching them over and the trailers over and over and over.
Yeah, and like people ragged on the new update and stuff, but I think to me the pre-show was the best part of the update. Like,
Agreed.
It felt so much better instead of just like, oh, we're just gonna cut through movies, and start over again. Cut through movies, They really, when they updated that pre-show, they really dug into like,
the history,
into the history of the movie and the genres, and they separate it instead of just like, yeah, these are some of the,
Yeah.
And they talked about the movies that you're going to see on the ride and just like all that. I agree. That's a great scene, and especially with the update.
Yeah, and I mean, if you look at how much content they added too, because the original pre-show was about 9.5, 10 minutes, and then the update was almost an hour. It was like 49, 50 minutes. That is so much more content. And Robert Osborne, God rest him, he was a wonderful host to kind of give you this history. And I know a lot of people were upset about the update and taken away on the spieling and all that, but like you said, the best part of the update was pre-show and having that edition, having him explain the movies. And we have both the pre-shows also on our new site, totally plugging it. We have a history of GMR page that we are constantly adding photos of. But we were fortunate enough to receive both videos of the updated TCM pre-show and the classic one. And we're going to be adding more content as the show progresses and the website is continually being built upon. So that's exciting. Do you have a favorite memory of working on the ride, Gabe?
Memory or memories?
If you could give us one for now, because I don't want to take another 2 hours.
No, you're fine. Let's see. I mean, just honestly, the easiest and shortest answer is just the people I met. Like from people, like I said, from people who worked there previously for years and opened the ride, to people that come in and just meeting these people that were like me and as a kid loved this ride and they wanted to make sure that they could work this ride, and and just the friendships I made. Here I am co-hosting a podcast, something I thought I'd never do with you because we met a great movie ride, and my best friends Nicola and Jared. I met them at the Great Movie Ride, and they were there for my engagement to my now fiance. So it's just, those memories you make and the people you meet and the stories that come with working the ride is probably some of my favorite memories.
I'd have to agree. I mean, I wasn't there for your engagement, sadly, but oh man, that was so cool when you posted. I was like, oh my god, I had no idea. And yeah, I have so many. I'd have to think about it, but this isn't about me right now. How about any cast members or trainers or anybody that we worked with you want to give a shout out to? This was your question that you wanted to throw on, and I was like, yes, I like this because we get to throw shout outs to people that we haven't talked to in like 5 years, probably.
Yeah, I mean, I just shout out to Mike Fagnoli, who was my assessor and somebody I looked up to at Great Movie Ride. He ended up, I worked with him a short time, and then he ended up going to work in the training bungalows as part of that. Nicolette, she's the reason why I got Great Movie Ride. I was only working at Muppets at the time, and she called the trainer for the training scheduler for Icon and was like, here, tell him you want to work at Great Movie Ride, and like put me on the phone. I was like, I want to work at Great Movie Ride. And she like pushed me, and she really pushed. She, while I was there, she always pushed me to go for trainer, go for coordinator, go for gangster, go for band, like do all this stuff.
Yeah.
And, I wouldn't have done everything that I did if it wasn't for her. And then last shout out is to my 2 other super trainers, Melissa Rose Keeley and Jackie Skelton. Those were
Jackie as a trainer
2.5 weeks.
You had Jackie as a trainer also?
No. We were the super trainers.
Oh, okay. Update. Okay, she was one of my trainers, so that's why I was like, Jackie.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, shout out to them because during that 2.5 weeks of what felt like a year of updating everybody in the ride for the opening of the TCM Great Movie Ride. Those were some rough days, a lot of crying and hugging and laughing and stress. But yeah, shout out to you guys. You guys made it a little bit easier. So yeah.
I remember Melissa actually was the one that trained me on the update when we got the script update. And I was laying in dock, just like in one of the aisles, the rows to load people. And I'm just like reading this thing like, I have to remember all this.
Yeah, like I said, trust me, it was. She was my trainer, and I was the first group to get trained. Besides them too, because her and Jackie were the ones that got to see the script and work with the Imagineers on it and stuff like that. But once they started training, I was in the first group because I was going to be the 3rd super trainer, what they called it. We still need our capes. But yeah, I remember, and she was like, hey, so they're going to all learn tour guide, but we need you to learn tour guide, gangster, and bandit. And I just kept I was trying to remember all these lines, and I had the lines, but I just kept flustering, especially in Oz. I kept messing up. And one point, I messed up the line. I slammed down the mic, and I stepped off the vehicle and walked to the essay door in the dark and just started cursing a storm. And I came back and I'm like, okay, I'm fine. But I was like, God, and she'll tell you. And I think one of her favorite stories during that training is, we had the iPads with headphones in, and we had the video of the track with the Robert Osborne updated spiel button points and stuff. And I'm going through and I'm saying the lines and I'm trying to memorize them, so I'm saying them out loud and stuff. And I turn and I see Jose look at me, and I go, "Am I being loud?" And Jose, being the nicest guy, he just goes, "Yes, you're being so loud."
Well, what's going to be good is we're going to take a break, and you're going to get to hear our new gangster advertisement outro. And then we're going to come back and have our guest, and we're going to have another break because we're going to introduce the new bandit as well. Since this is our Great Movie Ride celebration episode, it's going to be a little longer than normal, but we're having fun talking movie ride. And then we get to go around the track with our guest, Dave Feske. We'll be right back on the Great Movie Radio Show.
Shut up, you two. You want to blow our cover? Psst. Hey, you. You're listening to the Great Movie Radio Show starring Chris and Gabe. Don't nobody move until we get back, or else. if you know what I mean.
Warning. Remain on this podcast. The advertisement you are experiencing is extremely dangerous. Proceed with caution.
Hey, what are you looking at? Hit the subscribe button to catch more of the Great Movie Radio Show starring Chris and Gabe, and maybe you won't get hurt.
Here they come, boss!
Would you look at that, a red light. Running a red light's against the law, and I would never break the law. No more red light.
Autumn Star Entertainment is an independent producer of movies and video. Their goal is to provide Hollywood-level entertainment for low to no budget. Check them out on Facebook.com/AutumnStar Entertainment or on Twitter at AutumnStarENT.
Time for Chris and Gabe, hosts of the Great Movie Radio Show, to get back to work. I better lay low for a while, the heat's on. On second thought, I could go for some popcorn.
Hey everyone, we're back at the Great Movie Radio Show, and I've got my trusty ally and co-host Gabe Jaramello with me. What's up, Gabe?
Hey, how you doing, everybody?
We are, of course, recording remotely due to quarantine in our areas. Our guest is coming to us from a completely different state, so he has to be remote regardless. But Gabe and I are both in Florida. Yeah, so this is an interesting new thing. Not only do we have the co-host, but we're doing the remote recording. It's a whole brand new ball game to us,
Social
so we're learning as we go.
Finest.
But our guest worked on Movie Ride for many years. He was my trainer, or one of my trainers, and has become one of my best friends over the years. And it's a pleasure to have, for our 31st birthday for Movie Ride episode, Mr. Dave Feske on the Great Movie Radio Show with us. Welcome to the show, Dave.
Why? Thank you very much. I'm very honored to be here, especially on a May 1st episode.
Yeah, we're excited to have you.
It's great to have you. And how long at the Movie Ride did you work at, you said?
I was there in total about 6 years. I was part-time for about the first 2 years or so, and then full-time after that. And my last year and a half or almost 2 years was as a full-time coordinator. So yeah, 6 years in total. All at Movie Ride in the surrounding area.
And Gabe and I were chatting earlier. He said he was there about 5, so you both were probably there around the same time.
I think Gabe was there, I think, before me, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I started in February of 2011, so I don't remember when you started. But I think I remember you coming
2011, so I was right after you.
Okay, so just hand in hand.
We're going to discuss some moments from GMR with you, dive into what you did at the ride and some of their favorite things about working there. And then we're going to take another break. And then when we come back, we're going to do our Around the Track, which is so much fun. What did you get a chance to experience working at the ride, Dave?
Pretty much all of them. I think the only thing that I really didn't do from a ride perspective was a character trainer, which really kind of bums me out. I always wanted to actually train other characters, but I was very, very fortunate. Obviously started in the tour guide role, and because I was part-time, I kind of moved up the part-time list pretty quickly. So it was kind of nice. I got to become a gangster pretty quickly, I think within not even 6 months or so. And then a little over a year later, I got to become a bandit, which was a lot of fun. I was even a part-time trainer, and then I was also a part-time coordinator, proficient cast member. So for those non-Disney folks, coordinators kind of oversee the general attraction and the cast members who are working it. So I kind of got to do all those things, and then eventually I went full-time and continue doing all of those roles. I love being a trainer, but I absolutely loved coordinating the ride, I think more than anything else.
Yeah, that was fun. I mean, for me, it was coordinating the ride was kind of like a giant puzzle, especially as you look ahead towards the end of the night. You're like, okay, I need to put these people in this spot and figure out where to go and make sure they're in the right spot to close and, get them on the vehicle, but make sure they get their break and all that. So, yeah.
It was fun. It was almost like, you sort of become a master of all the different land positions, so loading and all that stuff. And especially once you're a trainer and you've been doing the character role for several months, you kind of really get a hang of all those characters and all of these different roles that are happening. And once you are able to actually coordinate the attraction, it's like almost this, kind of grand puppeteer kind of feeling behind it. So you've mastered all the roles that are, a part of the show. And then you get to see everything from kind of this umbrella, view, 10,000 foot view. And yeah, it really is fascinating. And I don't think I'll ever have another job, anything close to it.
Yeah, for sure.
There's nothing like the great movie ride. And I gotta say, and this goes for both of you too. I know when I would come in for my shifts, I normally worked the evening time. That was my more popular shift. I was full time, so I came in usually like 2:00 to close or 12 to close or something. And any time that either of you were on the dock or coordinator, I was like, yes. So that was always a pleasant day when either of you were coordinating. I'm not saying anyone else that coordinated it wasn't. I'm just saying I'm just putting that out there.
Certainly high praise. I will say this though. I mean, I think any good coordinator, and not that I was like the greatest at this or anything at all, but if you have a really good understanding of the roles that are being done and you're overseeing all those things, it just made you that much better at your role, and you could make the other cast members' experiences just as good and just as memorable as the ones that you had doing all of those same things. So I feel fortunate having had good coordinators and good leaders that came through that were passionate about the attraction and really wanted to keep not just the mechanical side of it going smoothly, but also just the spirit of it going smoothly as well. And I think almost anybody that came through a great movie ride, even if it was a short period of time, or if you were there for 5, 6, 7, 8 years, or even longer, you always had that spirit for it. And that's the one thing that you always try to convey, I think. And that was always kind of my goal, and I know that was something Gabe was always trying to do as well. And even Chris, in your time, I mean, you were nothing if not passionate about the attraction, even if it caused other anxieties.
I had my moments where I would be frustrated and wanted to throw, I don't know, something, but we all did, I'm sure.
And you just thought to yourself, maybe someone is trying to sabotage the ride, because I was actually coordinating the night that an unnamed maintenance person drove a ride vehicle into the wall. So, things would happen. You never know what might happen. The poor tour guide, Hannah, that was on the vehicle was, wide-eyed, and I knew that she was not in control of the vehicle. So, but yeah, just a big smash right at the end of the night. That's how you know you've been at you've been at movie ride too long, right? Is when you've seen a vehicle crash into the scenery or that far off track.
Oh, those were the worst. Especially like right at the beginning, like as you're turning into musical, and it like blocks off people being able to exit, so you have to like redirect them and reroute them, and then you have those like 3 or 4 rows that they can't get out because we can't move the vehicle, and it was interesting.
Unique.
That's for sure. Hey Dave, what was your favorite section of GMR, since we're talking about getting stuck and all of that? What would you say was your favorite?
That's a very good question. I think for me it was always, especially after I had a chance to walk the track and spend more time kind of wandering through it and that kind of stuff, was Alien. And I think the main reason why it was particularly awesome when the sound effects were going on, like hanging chains in the hangar when you first got in and stuff. But I always loved the fact that, once you were on the Alien side of the scene from Western into Alien, and you were kind of looking around the bend, because it was this big curve, you couldn't just see into the next show scene. So it was this kind of contained scene. There were so many details in it. Unlike a lot of the other parts of the ride where it was like, oh, this is fun, I feel like I'm on a movie set. That was one of, that scene, no matter what, I always got that feeling of not just feeling like I was in a set, but like I was actually in the Nostromo itself, So I think that was always my favorite scene.
You and I definitely share the outlook on that. I was telling Gabe earlier, that's my favorite part. Gabe's was a good answer. He said his was Doc, which I always think of inside the ride, but not the dock part itself. But no, I agree with you a lot that an Alien being one of my favorite movies, you go in and you have the chains hanging and you hear them clinging, and I always loved watching the guests. I didn't get to see them because I wasn't on, but like if I was riding the ride as a guest and watching the side alien come get the second car when you start to speed into Raiders, those few people who may have not ridden it before and it comes out at them and they're like, oh God.
Yeah, it's a great scene. I mean, like Doc, I would say is my favorite scene. Like I really love that scene. Like Dave was saying, like the detail and everything, and just like the little Easter eggs in every little part of the ride, whether it had to do with the movie or just like the ride itself. It was just takes you out of the ride and into like the movie itself kind of scene.
It really does. Dave, do you have a favorite memory of working on the ride? I'm sure you have plenty in your 6 years, but do you have like one that you could pinpoint down to? Or
well, I think we're probably going to hear like 10 over the course of our recording and stuff together, but it's always a challenge to try to like pick like one thing, because I could probably choose a dozen or so, but I will say, obviously with the attraction being closed now and stuff, it's looking for kind of silver linings here and there, and one of them for me is like telling these kinds of stories where I probably wouldn't have normally shared this information because I could have gotten in trouble, but now it almost doesn't matter. So but no, in one of the days I had the very, very fortunate. Yeah, I didn't get to work in Bandit a lot. I was a Bandit trained cast member, but it's one of those roles that it wasn't always required and all that kind of stuff. And then having whoever you were working with sometimes kind of could make or break your day, just depending on your mood or whatever you're kind of feeling. And I had a day in Bandit with Sean Cumberland, Jennifer Duvall, and Brittany Davies. And if you know any one of those individuals by themselves, you'll know that they're just wonderful, awesome, amazing human beings. But the fact that the four of us all got to be together in Bandit was just awesome. It was just, tons of fun. It was just one of those days where you almost didn't want it to end. You're just like willing to take show after show after show and just have fun, being at the ride and having fun with the role and all that kind of stuff. And so at the end of the night, it was, I think, the last Bandit show of the night. So we get a call, final show is on its way. And Jennifer was taking it. It was her turn to take the show. And so Brittany and Sean and I were packing up our stuff. We were getting ready to go. And I said, hey, should I go and hijack Jennifer's vehicle during her show? And Brittany and Sean didn't really give me like a yes. But I forget exactly Sean's words, but it was, something effective like, I wouldn't tell you not to do that kind of a thing.
Yeah, and it probably sounded like I'm not going to tell you to not do it, but I'm also not going to tell you to do it.
I'm not saying that would break the show or anything, but so anyway, yeah, so I waited, and when Jennifer ran around to blow the bank, I snuck around behind the general store, and I basically cut in front of her. And I ran down and I jumped on the vehicle and said something to the effect of, Kate Durango, I got you good. And she took her hat, she threw it down. Kid Carson, I'll never forgive you, or something that. I mean, she responded perfectly. The guests had no clue what was going on. And then the tour guide, I'm sure, was just confused as all hell because I got to Anubis and walk, like, where's Jennifer? So I will say, just like in terms of just brazen, fun and the spirit of everything like that, that's one of my most favorite memories from the ride for sure.
Oh man, that's awesome. I don't think I've ever heard that story.
If I was the tour guide, I'll be honest, I would have been like, wait, did somebody skip? Am I supposed to be out there right now? I would be like freaking out, like, who's supposed to be here right now? Is it me? What is going on?
In terms of that is not in the operating guides, that was not, in terms of all those kinds of stories, for me, that's my kind of big one, so.
You should just be glad Gabe wasn't show observing.
Well, that's what I was telling him earlier. I was like, I have plenty of stories and like goof up things that I did, but like I had to keep it secret because I was a coordinator and a trainer and a show observer, so I had to be the example. But boy, did
but you always, I mean, yeah. You find the time when you've been there kind of long enough, you kind of figure out the moments where not that it's acceptable, but that you can kind of get away with it.
I will say there was one day not to get off topic, but John Van Cleef was in Gangster, and Corey was in Bandit, and I was either in Gangster or Bandit, but we were messing with each other. And in your favorite scene, Corey and I ran over to Alien, got behind the curtain, and then went into space. And when the SA doors opened into Alien, we pretended like we were just floating in space as he drove by. Like we were just dead in space.
I've never heard that before. Oh, that's wonderful.
And I think anybody that worked in Gangster when either bubble machines or water guns were around, it was kind of a, tempt your own fate sort of scenario. So you never know. There might have been a few shows where the gangster got on the vehicle completely soaking wet because they got, doused in so yeah.
Well, we're gonna take a break in just a moment and get to Around the Track. Before then, do you have any cast members or trainers you want to give it a shout out to, Dave?
Yeah, I almost feel bad. In the questionnaire you said trainers, and I feel bad following up a story where I was completely breaking the rules to recognize the people who trained me at the attraction, but because this is in no way a reflection upon them, but. No, I feel eternally grateful for all the trainers that I had, only because they not only set a really great example for how to do the job, but again, that spirit. They were all people who were passionate about the attraction and really enjoyed their time there. And my tour guide trainer was Wes Witten. So if anybody that ever knew Wes, kind of a nice dry sense of humor. I was probably just a complete overjoyed ball of energy when I started training with him, because I was just over the moon to be trained at Great Movie Ride. But just exceptionally proficient, cast member and a hard worker, and taught me everything I needed to know for the tour guide position. And and then in Gangster, I was trained by Nicolette, who anybody that worked with Nicolette would know that she was a phenomenal cast member, again, just like highly technically proficient. She knew the ride in and out. She knew all the roles in and out. And she always expected your kind of highest performance. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all. She always gave hers. And I got to be the first live for Gangster, which was a lot of fun. Side note, Nicolette was also the person that I shadowed for coordinator. So again, she really taught me the idea of looking ahead. Movie Ride was a different attraction in terms of coordinating and trying to get cast members on and off these vehicles and stuff. So just a different beast, compared to other attractions. Obviously everything's unique, but there was this idea of kind of looking ahead in time, almost 20, 40 minutes ahead in time, that Nicolette taught me as a coordinator, that was highly valuable. Yeah. Because as Gabe said, it's like a puzzle. We were talking about it previously, just saying, trying to coordinate this attraction was the most complicated timed puzzle that you could ever work on. So Nicolette gave me a lot of ins and outs and a lot of tips and tricks that I took with me the rest of my time as a coordinator. And then in Bandit, I was trained by the absolutely phenomenal Melissa Keeley. So also Melissa Rose, that's how I've always referred to her as. But yeah, she was my Bandit trainer. She laughed hysterically. I think one of my first kind of runs when I was training, when, just a dry run, a dead show was coming through, and I bust through the doors and I knocked my Bandit hat clean off, and it rolled off the stage and down onto the ride track, and I had to run down and grab it before I got ran over by the ride vehicle. But she was phenomenal, and I always really got along well with Melissa. She's one of my favorite people that I ever worked with at Disney, and the fact that she actually got to be my trainer was a lot of fun. So I like to say I got the holy trinity of trainers at the time. So I feel very, very lucky. But to your point, Chris, I was there for a long time. I have a million memories, and I wish I could give a shout out to everybody that impacted my life there. But the truth is, every single person that I worked with did in some way or another. And I know that sounds cliche, but it's true.
No, I'm with you, man. And I'm pleased to say that you were one of my trainers. I had you and Jackie and Jackie Skelton, Brittany Davies, and I can't remember. I think I had Jennifer for one day, if I remember correctly. But you were I had you the most, and I gotta say this, and I think I've said it to you before, but just for the spirit of Movie Ride, I was very nervous coming to Movie Ride at first. I was so excited. I'm not really big on speaking in front of people, but you really helped me. Well, all of you, but you specifically really helped me kind of open up, and I got to thank you for that, because it was really tough for me getting into. I've always been one, like we're doing, the show now. I've always been one to be, off camera and by myself with maybe a person or two and talking. But to talk in front of that many people multiple times a day, it was tough for me. It was really tough, and you really helped me break my mold. And even though I had the anxieties I did throughout my tenure there, you helped me take the mask off, I guess, and get to be myself with the ride. And I got to say, I appreciate that. I really do, because as difficult it was for me to, my anxieties, pressured me. I had so many fun times and so many fun memories working there that I will never take it back. So thank you for investing in me as a tour guide. And I was telling Gabe earlier, I remember when you and I first walked around on training, because we walked around the park, and we headed off because we started talking like Kermit the Frog and Fozzie, which I'm not going to get into starting talking like that now, because no.
We could say that for another.
That was the moment I knew that I was where I was supposed to be for the time being, and it was a fun time. So thank you for helping me open up and challenging myself to be a better me, at least temporarily, until my demons got the better of me, I guess you could say.
I mean, some phenomenal trainers too. It sounds like, and I know Gabe can attest to the fact that, like, when people are working on the script backstage, and I think most of us, or most all of us, use the locker hallway with the arrows, to kind of the arrow game, to learn your lines. And Chris, I just remember you being like one of the most excited people every time you would like nail a line. And I know, Gabe, you can attest to that too. Just like, see, you have these certain trainees who can just like, they just light up when they nail it, because maybe they don't feel like they can do it. But I think Movie Ride was one of those things that I knew people who were more than happy to get up and talk to crowds. And I knew a lot of people who were, adamantly opposed to even doing it, who could still blossom at Movie Ride.
Yeah, I would agree. There was something different about Movie Ride. It was not an easy attraction to learn. And, as a trainer, you had to go in understanding that, and understanding people are different. They're not going to be, actors or, great in front of people. But we, you see them evolve from day one until like their last day at Movie Ride. And, there's people who, I started with day one, and they're like, I don't speak good in front of people. I don't know why they put me here. And then, like a month in, I show observe, and they're like, wow, that was like a great show. Like, you had it nearly perfect. You were great, your energy, everything like that. So it was fun, and it was very challenging as a trainer, because you had to learn different like training styles. And I mean, that's how it should be for all training, but with Movie Ride and learning the script, it's had a different aspect. And, Dave, I didn't like train with you or anything like that, but I got to work side by side as coordinator and trainer and stuff like that, and our days up in Gangster and stuff. So whenever I would see your name up on the board, I knew it was going to be a good time.
Same. I think if I had to just, in general, just thinking back to some of the best memories and a lot of my favorites, Gabe was always there. And I think that's, dude, like you and I started around the same time, and we were there almost the entire length of time, for that 5-6 years. So very happy to have gotten a chance to work alongside you and had a lot of fun as well.
Yeah.
He was always a character too. He always was. I said that earlier. Me and him were talking before you came on. He was always a character, no matter what position he was, the tour guide, coordinator with the characters. He was always this goof that, even though he had some seriousness to him, he was just, you could tell he was having fun.
Well, I think one of my most fond memories is there was a week, Gabe, where you were like, it was around Christmas, and I think you were actively trying to work 100 hours that week.
Yes.
And like, you were like,
yes, I worked 99 hours and 55 minutes.
And it was, if nothing else, I just remember thinking like, holy cow, I hope he does it. Like I was rooting for you, and that was nuts. You were like going crazy by the end of it.
I'm pretty sure you were the closing coordinator on that Saturday night, and it was like you and Chris, manager Chris. And I was like, guys, I'm only 5 minutes away from it. Like, can you do anything? And they're like, no, because you'll be in double back tomorrow. There's nothing we can do. And I was like, damn it, no.
I'm pretty sure if it had just been me, I would have been like, yeah.
But there was, I think it was like you, Chris, and then there was another manager there, and they're like, oh my God, we want to try to help you so bad. Hit that 100 hours. And they're like, you guys looked into everything, like, no, because it's going to cost double back. I think it was Frank was the other manager there. Oh
yeah.
But yeah.
Frank was the coordinator when we first started. Yeah.
Oh yes, I remember that. But yeah, that was a crazy week. I always tell people that story when they're like, "Oh, you worked at Disney?" I was like, "Yeah." And the first Christmas I was full time. I was 5 minutes away from 100 hours in a week, and they're like, "What?"
Yeah, I mean that was like legendary. I
don't
think I'll ever forget about that. But
you brought that up, and I remember because like you could see him like through the week, just like slowly like getting. I want to say less like Gabe, but also more like Gabe as the week progressed, because you were less stable Gabe and more like crazy Gabe. And it was funny because you were loopy, man. You were so.
I think
loopy.
That's where all the I would take naps in the break room, and that's where all the photos came of me looking like Charles Xavier,
Professor Xavier.
Yeah, I was like with my hand in my temples.
Yep.
Between that and then like the only other time I think just from like a sheer like dedication working standpoint was you, Jackie, and Melissa during the TCM update, and just like the level of work that just the three of you did was off the chart. So speaking of phenomenal trainers, I was fortunate to have Melissa for one. Chris, you said Jackie's name, so I mean, yeah, like the three of you were it.
Yep.
Yeah, I actually brought that up on like when you asked me if I wanted to shout out. I brought up those two because that 2.5 weeks or whatever it was doing that TCM update was rough.
Gabe, you told me you were, when you were doing that though, they had finished the finale video, so you were one of the first cast members to actually get to see the new TCM update finale.
Yeah, because during overnights,
if I remember correctly,
Imagineers were there, and there was one guy, and I cannot remember his name, and I feel terrible, but I got like pretty close with him during those like 2 weeks and stuff. And one night he came up to me. I was on dock and I was training people, and he goes, "Hey, we're about to play the finale montage for the first time, the new one. Do you want to be in here?" And I said, "Okay, yeah." I was like, "All right, everybody, we're going to take a break and we're going to go to finale." And we all sat there, and Jackie, Melissa, and I were all next to each other. I'm pretty sure I was holding Melissa's hand and like crying because I was like, "Oh my God, this is so beautiful."
I remember they needed someone to just like dispatch vehicles, and I had volunteered to do that for the couple of the overnights, and I was on dock like as vehicles were going through. I think it was the next day, because then they were like just kind of looping it to kind of get it working, get it lined up and stuff. And like I just remember standing on dock, and all I was doing was just like letting vehicles go and closing doors. But then every vehicle that was coming out of finale, like all the tour guides and all the trainers had like tears coming down their eyes. And I was like, I need to go and see it. So I got to watch everyone's reactions first and then go. And yeah, it was magnificent. I'm glad that you guys got to be a part of that history. I mean, it was such a cool period of time.
Well, speaking of coming back to the dock, we're gonna take a quick pause. And then when we're back, we're going to go around the track with you, Dave Feske. And you're going to take us through some of your favorite films and favorites from all the genres, so we can talk about maybe what movies that inspired you throughout your life.
I am ready.
Awesome. Well, we'll be right back on the Great Movie Radio Show. Stay tuned.
Hold it right there, hombre. Woo-wee! You're listening to the Great Movie Radio Show starring Chris and Gabe, which means you hit the mother load. Don't any hombres move until we come back. Unless you want a belly full of lead.
Warning. Remain on this podcast. The advertisement you are experiencing is extremely dangerous. Proceed with caution.
Be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss another episode of the Great Movie Radio Show starring Chris and Gabe. When you do, it means you're riding with us now, so hold on to your horses. Speaking of which, where are the horses?
Hey everyone, it's Chris from the GMR Show. Have you ever had a question or movie recommendation that you wanted us to play on air? Download the Anchor app and search The Great Movie Radio Show. Click on Message and leave us a 1-minute voice message. You can also go to our website, www.thegmrshow.com, and go to the contact page, and there's a button right there for you. Leave us a message and we'll play it on a future episode. Thanks for listening, and we hope to hear from you on The Great Movie Radio Show.
That's a mighty fine territory you're heading into, Pilgrim. Time to get back to the Great Movie Radio Show starring Chris and Gabe. I wouldn't think about turning back if I was you. That is, if you want my opinion.
All right, everyone, welcome back to the Great Movie Radio Show. During our break, unfortunately, Gabe got pulled to another attraction, so it's just going to be myself and our wonderful guest, Dave Feske, going around the track here. Welcome back, Dave.
I think we'll manage, but it'll be a little rough working without Gabe for the next few minutes.
Yeah, I feel bad that they pulled him because it's his first episode as co-host, but, he obligations, man, obligations.
That's what happens.
So it does. So we're going to go around the track. We're going to talk about your favorite 5 films first, and I love your list here. Starting with 1977's wonderful game-changing science fiction event, Star Wars.
I know, and it's probably like at the top of a whole bunch of people's lists. But, for me, I grew up watching all of the Star Wars movies. My mom's a big Star Wars fan and a Star Trek fan too, actually. I grew up watching all the Star Trek movies as well. But we owned a video store when I was growing up, and we were one of the few people with a VCR and a VHS tape. And even before Star Wars was available, my mom had a bootleg copy of it. And she literally wore the tape out. That's how often we watched it. So, and for me, it's just like, that's like my comfort movie. When I was deployed overseas in 2006, and that was like my go to sleep movie every night. I'd put it on my portable DVD player and put my headphones on. And so, yeah, I have a very deep relationship with Star Wars: A New Hope.
It's a fantastic film, man. And we've talked about it quite often on the show. And of course, it's briefly shown in both versions of the pre-show or the finale montage. Different iterations of Star Wars have shown up in there. So it's been on the ride, and it's one of the best science fiction films of all time. It really is.
Oh, yeah. And yeah, I mean, Movie Ride, that jump to hyperspace, that was, the original kind of takeoff point. So if you really were good, if you could time it right, you could kind of get that visceral feeling of the ride vehicle moving forward right as that Millennium Falcon jump to hyperspace shot was kind of pulling up. So groundbreaking movie for 100 reasons. And yeah.
Of course. You're number 2 on your list. I kind of know why it's on your list. And I agree with you. Gattaca. The first time I ever saw this movie with Ethan Hawke and Uma Thurman was in my biology class, because it was talking about the DNA code and how it played into the film. And it's such a good film. And I don't want to tell the story. I'll let you do it because I know why, or part of it. But yeah, I agree with you. It's a wonderful film.
Well, this movie came out when I was in high school, I think, and I don't even remember why I sort of how I even found it. I just remember being really enamored by it when it first came out. I thought it was just this amazing story. It's a very like near future sort of tale of genetic modification and this guy who's kind of overcoming the odds, pretending to be another person entirely, and also being investigated for murder at the same time. It's just a really fascinating story. And I really loved it for a long time. And then, when I met my wife, it was one of the first movies that she and I we were kind of, first just getting to know each other and talking about movies. And it was the first movie that we watched together was Gattaca. The second one was The Birds, the Alfred Hitchcock movie. But no, that
nice.
Gattaca was the first film that my wife and I bonded over, and we love it. And we might actually watch it tonight because we were talking about it earlier today. So we'll see. But phenomenal movie. And yeah, you got us as a wedding present the film reel of the preview of the trailer for Gattaca. It's amazing, absolutely amazing gift. So Thank you again for that.
Oh no, it's my pleasure, man. I was happy to find that. I was like, oh, what's something unique and awesome? And I know that you two bonded over that movie, and I figured, why not? It's sentimental for both of you. And I never thought. I was like, trailer film reel. How cool would that be? And I've been tempted to go on eBay and like find a few of like my favorites just to have them, but I still haven't reached out and done that yet. I need to.
It's a unique item, so very cool.
The day that you can actually play it, you'll have to tell me.
Get my hands on a 35 millimeter projector. We'll see.
Yeah, right. The next one on your list is one I actually just watched for the first time a couple weeks ago. Actually, was the Clockwork Orange, Stanley Kubrick's masterpiece.
A lot of the movies that I pick, usually it's because it sort of introduced me to a side of film or a side of movies that I never really seen before. So I mentioned previously, I grew up. My mom worked at a drive-in movie theater when she was a kid. My parents owned the only video store in my hometown for like 10 or 15 years. So when I was growing up, I was surrounded by movies all the time. So I got exposed to a lot of stuff, even at an earlier age than most people would probably think. But like A Clockwork Orange, I watched it when I was in high school, and it was the first Stanley Kubrick movie that I saw. And I just became immediately obsessed with his kind of style. And so, I'm not one of those individuals that looks at Alex and thinks like, oh, that's someone to emulate or anything like that. It's just it's a remarkable story. It's a really interesting story that it's based on. Also a kind of a near future dystopia, and just really kind of fascinating. I'd never seen a movie like that before. And so it really just kind of blew me away. And then that opened the door to my kind of Stanley Kubrick obsession. So I'm a huge fan of his style and the way that he frames things.
Oh yeah, I remember when we worked on the ride together, you would tell me when I see it, it's got a connection to Movie Ride, and getting to watch it a couple weeks finally, immediately understood the connection. Singing in the Rain, and how that was a crazy ending to that movie. How the name itself kind of paraphrases actual synopsis of the movie. I mean, because Clockwork is that you're finally tuning something that of its own, making, and to turn him into something of theirs. And I never really, I watched the film and I read some things on it. It was more genius than it had any right to be. It really was.
Yeah, and I mean, it was a groundbreaking movie, and unfortunately, there were people that kind of took it almost literally and went out and beat people up and stuff, and saying that they were inspired by this movie. And Stanley Kubrick was like horrified by that. He wanted it to be more of a cautionary tale, and it kind of went sideways in terms of people who were watching it. And so even in Europe, it didn't play. It initially came out and then it was pulled from movie theaters, and I don't think it played again in Europe or at least in the UK for 20 years or more. So yeah, just a remarkable movie, really interesting subject matter. And then just from a style point of view and a filmmaking point of view, just so unique. We also at
I agree wholeheartedly.
To come back to your Singing in the Rain. Yeah, you'll never listen to Singing in the Rain the same way again if you've seen A Clockwork Orange. But at one point in the lobby, we actually had Alex's derby hat, so his bowler hat that he wears in the film. That was actually one of the props that we had in the lobby for a while. I think I was like the only person who was super excited about that.
The connection there, yeah. Your next one on your list is Black Hawk Down.
Yeah, Black Hawk Down's it's a 2001 movie. It's Ridley Scott directed this one, and it's based on a true story. So in 1992 or 93, a bunch of U.S. Army Rangers and Special Forces guys went in to try to pick up a warlord in Somalia, Mogadishu, Somalia. It was supposed to be a quick 30-minute in and out mission, and it turned into like a 2.5-day nightmare of them being trapped in the city, being completely overrun by Somalian militia. And it's all about their struggle to basically survive in the middle of a hornet's nest, a war zone of just chaos. And then trying to get back out of it. It's got probably one of the most amazing casts ever. You've got Josh Hartnett, Ewan McGregor, Tom Sizemore, Eric Bana, Sam Shepard is in this movie. Tons and tons and tons of people. Amazing soundtrack, crazy story. But then when I was I was in the Army, and this was one of the few modern military movies that you could kind of watch. And I was a combat medic while I was in the military, and they would actually use scenes from this movie to train us and show us scenarios that could actually happen during combat. And that was kind of how they could expose us to these kinds of things without kind of getting into the real thing. So this movie I've really just thoroughly enjoyed for a really long time, and it has a particularly close connection with me with my time in the military.
I had no idea that they were showing the training. It's interesting.
Yeah,
interesting
in
to
terms
know.
of military movies, just in general, I think it's one of the most accurately portrayed. The book is fantastic. It started out as actually a long form news story, a news article, basically, and then that got turned into a book, and then it got turned into a movie. And they got trained by special forces. They got trained by Army Rangers, and yeah, I mean, just absolutely crazy. So in terms of accuracy, super accurate, super realistic kind of movie. And yeah, they actually have a medic in the movie, who a couple of them actually, there's 3 different medics in one movie. So they show all the different kind of scenarios that they were in for treatment, either in the middle of a firefight or, after, during kind of a downtime. And so yeah, it was actually pretty remarkable training tool.
It sounds like it, man. I could never do what you did with the military either. My grandfather was a medic in World War II, and I know plenty of people who are in the military. Yeah, it takes a lot of guts to do something like that. So we appreciate what you serve in the country, of course. And that's a cool fact about the movie I didn't even know about, to be honest.
Oh, yeah.
And we're going to quickly mention your number 5, The Dude Abides with the Big Lebowski. That was a great film, man. I've seen it probably 2 or 3 times, and every time I watch it, I just giggle constantly. Especially at John Goodman. Oh my God!
Oh man, yeah, Walter Sobchak. I mean, I think every single one of these characters are just iconic. This movie, again, having my top 5 films, I kind of chose them for various reasons. They have either personal connections, or they're just 5 movies that if you were to just come up to me and say, "Hey, do you want to watch this right now?" I without hesitation say yes. But the Coen brothers, right? They're from Minnesota. I'm from Minnesota as well. And the movie Fargo, a lot of people are familiar with. It's actually further on down my list as well. But anyway, they did Fargo, and then they did The Big Lebowski right after that. And the Bunny Lebowski, the girl that is supposedly kidnapped, her real name is supposed to be Fawn Knutson. And she's from Moorhead, Minnesota, which is my hometown. So in the movie, they actually mention my hometown, which is kind of funny because it's right on the border of Fargo, North Dakota. So another just hilarious, fun movie, and just happens to have a really interesting connection to me personally. And my family and we quote this movie nonstop. So it's constantly quoted all the time. There's a beverage here, man. So.
White Russians. So we're going to finally go around the track, talk some of your favorite movies. I gotta say though, that top 5 list, that's a solid one, and it's the first one. Gattaca's been brought up on the show. Sadly, it's such an underrated film, Gattaca, and it's funny that you and I talked about it as much as we did because, like I said, not a lot of people know about that one.
Yeah, it was kind of one of those in the late '90s. It's an independent movie. That's why it's got Ethan Hawke and Uma Thurman in it. So. Yeah, I wish I could remember. I'm glad that you got it pointed out to you in school. There's a good chance that's possible. That's how I heard about it too. I took advanced biology and I really loved it. And yeah, so for those who don't know, Gattaca is just using the 4 proteins that make up your DNA. So it's guanine, adenine, cytosine, and thymine, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly. Someone may have to correct me after, but yeah, so GTAC, those 4. So that's how they got the name of the movie, which is pretty cool.
It's pretty sweet. And of course, that's the project. That's the astronaut project of going to space. It's Gattaca, if I remember right. Awesome. Well, diving into Around the Track, we're going to head into musical. We're taking off from Doc, and we're going into Newsies.
Newsies, one of my favorite. So musicals are my I think my least strong genre on here, followed closely by horror. Not that I don't like musicals, but I just am not super familiar with a lot of them. And so my list is mostly comprised of what are musicals that, I really enjoyed or I know all the words to. So I have South Park on there because I literally know all the words to that.
I was going to say number 3, your first musical South Park, and I was laughing when I got the list.
It's kind of
like,
a cheat.
God,
But South Park,
South
Bigger,
Park
Longer, and Uncut is not only an animated movie but a musical, and it was nominated for an Academy Award for Blame Canada. So it's it's an Oscar-nominated movie. So I don't feel bad having it on there. But no, I think Newsies would make up a much better show scene. So I did choir at one point when I was growing up in like junior high, and we watched Newsies. So it was one of the first, I think, musicals that I got really kind of exposed to, like a modern musical, I guess. But it also had a lot of fun for me because another person who really loved Newsies is Brittany Davies, and she and I would constantly go back and forth in Gangster. If I, was the gangster, she was the tour guide, vice versa. We would try to make each other crack by making Newsies references. So, I absolutely love Newsies. I think if I had to, I think Carrying the Banner, just like the big opening, scene in Newsies would probably be the best one. All the kids out there with their newspapers selling them out. So yeah, I think that'd be the first scene that I would choose coming around the corner.
That would be a good one. I haven't seen Newsies in a long time. It came out in '92. It's got Bill Pullman. It's got
he was
Christian Bale, the Batman. And it's funny because South Park,
12 or 13.
Oh, go ahead.
When that movie came out.
Youngin. And there is an actor in the movie named Trey Parker, but it's not the Trey Parker from South Park. And I was just looking it up real quick because I haven't seen Newsies in a while. So that's a fun little fun fact there. Of course, on your list, you got Muppet Christmas Carol, which would be your second. And that's a wonderful one.
Yep.
And Wizard of Oz and Mary Poppins.
Some, standard go-tos in there. I just think people would lose it if they had to go through a part of South Park on a great movie ride. I think people would be a little confused.
You go through Newsies, Muppet Christmas Carol, and then South Park.
Totally reasonable.
That would be pretty funny. Oh man, that would be interesting. And then you go into Gangster, and there's Tom Hanks in Road to Perdition.
Tom Hanks, man, yeah.
This is one I haven't seen, though. I haven't seen this one before.
So I know. Then when I was in high school, I worked at a movie theater, right? So this movie came out in 2002. That was around the time I was working there. This has, I think, one of the best musical scores I've ever heard in my entire life, and I can see if I can pull up the name of the individual that did the score. But it's a graphic novel. Nice. It's a graphic novel. I didn't really know at the time when it came out, but all I knew was Tom Hanks and Paul Newman were in a gangster movie together, and then Daniel Craig is in it, who just is a total scene stealer, and directed by Sam Mendes, who went on to direct Daniel Craig in Skyfall and Spectre.
And he just did one of my favorite movies from last year, 1917.
Movie. So Road to Perdition, it's a gorgeous movie. It's beautiful. It's a really interesting and tragic tale. It's not exactly like a super upbeat movie, but it's a really, really realistic portrayal of the 1930s kind of gangsters. And Tom Hanks, of all things, he actually plays a hitman, but he's a hitman with a wife and a family, and some things go terribly awry in his life. And he ends up going on the road. Basically, he's kind of wanted by these gangsters, and he goes on the road with his son, who is played by Tyler Hoechlin, who a lot of people may know as Superman on Supergirl. Pretty cool. He's been around for a while now, but phenomenal movie. And then the score is amazing. And I have the DVD, right? And on the DVD menu just plays the soundtrack. And I used to just put it in my DVD player and just let it play because it was just that good. And phenomenal movie, just absolutely gorgeous film. Well,
Thomas Newman, who did Skyfall and 1917 with Sam Mendes, he did Road to Perdition. So I believe he's a constant contributor to Sam Mendes' work.
Jude Law is in it as well. Jude Law plays another man, and it's like not a Jude Law character. I mean, he's got this crazy nasty teeth and bald hair. But it's a phenomenal movie. If you haven't seen it, highly recommend it. We just watched it about 6 months ago.
Yeah, I'm looking at the cast list right now. God, how have I not seen this movie? I don't know. It's going on my list. It's going on my watch list. It somehow slipped through the cracks. Do you have a scene from Road to Perdition that you would put in the ride?
There's
Or one that you can
very
think?
specific scene. I don't really want to call it out because it's a crazy spoiler. But it's just a really gorgeous scene. Let's just say it takes place. It's actually a scene with no sound. It's a dark, rainy sequence, and it's only music and no sound effects. And it's just like this kind of gorgeously haunting sequence. And I think that would be kind of interesting to go through if it was part of it. This kind of rainy sequence. So yeah, don't want to say anything more than that.
Yeah, I'm sure I'll see it soon. I'll have to see if it's streaming anywhere. So usually we take a break right here, but we're going to keep going because we've already got plenty of breaks in the show this time. Into Western with Tombstone.
Yes.
And that is
one of my favorite.
I haven't seen Tombstone in
it's so good.
so
it's
long.
One of those just highly quotable films. This is another one like with my family.
Oh yeah,
we can just Val Kilmer as Doc Holliday, one of the best performances of all time. Kurt Russell as Wyatt Earp, amazing. Another just like the cast is just crazy. Sam Elliott, Bill Paxton, Powers Booth.
Oh yeah,
just an unbelievable number of people in this movie. And what I love about it is that it's both accurate and kind of over the top at the same time. It's a little stylized kind of version of the Old West. Everything's got a bit of a polish on it that probably wouldn't actually exist in the real world, but just an amazing story. The visuals are phenomenal again. But I think the real story there is Kurt Russell and Val Kilmer as Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday. The two of them, their chemistry. There's actually a director's cut. It's not much longer, but it just has a couple extra scenes with Doc Holliday and also with Doc and Wyatt.
Mm-hmm.
It just kind of fleshes out their relationship a little bit more because that was kind of the primary force behind the narrative of the movie. But they also do, some pretty amazing sequences. The gunfight at the OK Corral is just unforgettable. So lots of great visuals and scenery and yeah, hard to forget movie.
That was one of George Cosmatos' last films too. He did that and then one more movie in '97 and then passed away in 2005. But I remember it being a great film. And of course, there's the quotable line, "I'm your Huckleberry."
Oh yeah. There's a lot. Billy Bob Thornton is in this movie very briefly. Val Kilmer as Doc Holliday. You can't go past it. Michael Biehn is Johnny Ringo. The whole cast is amazing. There's
Charlton Heston's in it.
If I had to choose a scene, I think it would be hard to not pick the gunfight at the OK Corral. But there's actually a moment when they're walking to the corral and they're all in their long black trench coats and their hats and all that stuff. And there's a building on fire behind them. So Bandit already has the nice big fire effect going on. Mm-hmm. So how cool would it be to have the sheriffs or whatever, the marshals coming up with their long black trench coats on, coming to disarm the McClanahans and stuff behind the OK Corral.
Yeah, I could almost imagine riding into Western and the fire is already happening at a safe distance. Of course, you can have them walking at you while you're kind of driving by or something.
Yeah, and then the bandit could just be one of the members from the OK Corral who just tries to hightail it out of there and get out of the show scene as quickly as possible.
That would be fun. That would be a lot of fun. Like I said, I haven't seen it in so long, so I can't remember too much about it. But it's definitely one I need to rewatch. When I was reading your list earlier, I was going through and I said that to myself, I need to see that one. Your sci-fi movie, though, we would go to, and normally Alien. I have seen this plenty of times, and I love this movie so much. Minority Report is your favorite science fiction movie, and God, what a great film! Spielberg nailed it with this one, and Tom Cruise, he is a weirdo in real life, but and my wife's gonna laugh at this when she listens to this. Tom Cruise is such a great actor, except in Valkyrie. We tried to watch Valkyrie recently for the first time, and I turned it off in 15 minutes because I could not get into it because Tom Cruise was Tom Cruise. He wasn't this German officer that he was casted as. He was Tom Cruise. And I was like, this is the one time it's not working for him with me. Any other movie I've watched with him, he has been wonderful, but I could not do it. I was like, he doesn't belong as a German officer in this film. This is horrible.
I really like that movie, honestly,
but
but I love it's just the story that I really like. Bryan Singer did do something interesting there, I think it was Juan Carlos brought up The Hunt for Red October in his, and there's right at the beginning there's a scene where two characters are speaking in Russian, and the camera's like zooming in, and the camera stops and then starts zooming back out again. And when it starts zooming back out, the two characters are speaking in English. So is there a way of kind of getting around having to use subtitles for the whole movie? And Valkyrie, Bryan Singer, think of him what you will. He did something interesting there where he had Tom Cruise talking in German and then started talking in English, and then it kind of, so that's how they sort of got around that fact. I also find it interesting because they've got like Bill Nighy and all these other guys who, all these English actors, and they're all just using their native accents, but they decided to do that just because they could get, kind of better performances out of them. But Minority Report, it's kind of funny that of all the Steven Spielberg movies that I would end up on one of my top ones, this is, again, just one of my favorites. I just really love the representation, again, of the kind of near future, and the kind of world that we might be living in. And it's always really interesting as, this movie came out in 2002, right? So that was 18 years ago. And some of the things that 2002, in this movie from a technology standpoint are, they're things that kind of happen to us now in today's world. So I really love kind of seeing how that happens in this kind of realistic take. Plus, it's based on a short story, Philip K. Dick, who wrote that, who also wrote, Do Androids
Philip K. Dick,
Cheap, which is Blade Runner and all these other kind of movies. And I love this movie. Another great cast, just well-rounded and phenomenal flick.
I told my wife I need to watch it again. After Max von Sydow passed away, I was very upset, and we watched The Exorcist. That was my first time seeing that, and seeing his performance in that was just outstanding. And I've always been a fan, and we watched Dune, which we're going to talk about with you probably the next time we talk with you. Another wonderful, he was in it briefly, but one of his, there's one of his that I haven't seen. That's an older film that he was really, really good in that I was reading about recently. The Seventh Seal, which is one I really want to check out. And of course, him as the Emperor Ming in Flash Gordon.
Which is a movie I've never seen.
So it's
no.
I've seen Flash Gordon.
I've never seen Buckaroo Banzai. I've got a good hand. Yeah, I've got a good amount of movies that I've never seen that might surprise some people, because a lot of my friends in particular think I've seen like every movie ever made. Unfortunately, it's just not true. But if only I had precognition like the precogs in Minority who could predict these murders from happening. I will say, if I had to like pick a scene from this movie, it would be a little bit of a tough one. I really like there's a sequence early on where they go and like raid this guy's house, and it's all these like police, and they've got like armor on, and they drop down out of these kind of hovercraft type things and stuff. But I think it'd be cool. To have the I forget what they call it, but it's like the temple or whatever they refer to it as, where they have the three precogs, and Tom Cruise breaks in and basically kidnaps this girl to take her away. I think that'd be kind of a cool scene to show,
Oh, it was the Department
pre-crime.
The Department of Pre-Crime.
An interesting, fascinating.
That's what they called it.
Yeah, these people, these individuals are able to see the future, and can you arrest somebody for something that they haven't even done yet, So cool story and cool movie.
The standout role in that film for me was Peter Stormare as the eye doctor. And that was such a interesting and kind of grotesque sequence too, because you've got the fridge after he leaves, and he's got the strings tied to his hands, and he's trying to find his way around because he can't see. And it's just, Stormare as that doctor, it reminded me of, it wasn't the best movie, but Bruce Campbell's brief stint in Escape from LA.
He's kind of over the top, sort of zany. And actually, that'd be a really great sequence. That whole sequence, because that's also when they have the whole scene where he's got to be in the ice cold bathtub because those little spider things are trying to. So you could have like a little Tom Cruise animatronic,
the little spider droids
in the bathtub. So the open fridge, with the rotten food inside, and cops playing on in the background. So.
Oh my God. I love that movie. I need to revisit it. And we are going to go into your action adventure film, which is my favorite movie of all time. And oh God, I'm so excited to talk about this film. Yes. Everyone, sorry, I'm getting excited here. Everyone who knows me knows I freaking love The Rocketeer. I am a Finn head through and through, and I love this movie so much. And it is your favorite action adventure movie of all time. It is so underrated.
I didn't think
so
that there
underrated.
were a lot of Rocketeer fans out there. I thought I was like one of these weird kids. It has kind of a cult following in a way. It's this really underrated action adventure movie, and it came out in 1991.
It does.
I was, oh gosh, I hate to admit it, I was 8 years old when this movie came out, and I was all about like whatever the newest adventure kind of movie was. So my brother Jim, who you know well, he actually helped make me a Rocketeer costume. So we had one of the old school Ghostbusters backpacks, the plastic one. We turned it upside down, covered it in tinfoil, used a Sharpie to kind of draw on it, and then using an old Coca-Cola 12 pack, because it was like the boxy kind, not the fridge packs that they make now, but like so we actually cut the bottom out of that and covered it in yellow construction paper and made a fin. And so, I had my own Rocketeer costume when I was 8 years old. It was one of my favorite movies of all time. It's got, I think, one of the best soundtracks. It's like the most uplifting thing.
Oh my God. James Horner. God rest him. That was such a good
finding
score.
out later on, like Joe Johnston, who directed it, goes on and directs the first Avenger, Captain America, which is also phenomenal. Same kind of spirit. He directed Jurassic Park 3, which for me is forgettable. But at the same time, like the guy's been in the industry forever. He's done all these.
He worked on the Indiana Jones movies with Spielberg before going on to do what he did. And he did Star Wars, I think, a bit too. So he's been around. And he did Jumanji as well.
Yeah, just a super fun movie. And I'm amazed that it didn't gain as much traction. I'm amazed. There's like a Disney Junior. There's like a cartoon, like a Disney Junior cartoon, which I happened to scroll by on TV one time. I was like the Rocketeer, and sure enough, it was. So I'm dying for another movie to be made. And, it sounded like there was something in the works, but you never know.
There was at one point, and then they did the cartoon thing, and I think she's like the granddaughter of Cliff Secord or something, and so they have flashbacks to Cliff at moments. I've watched, I think, 1 or 2 episodes, and it's very, very, like you said, it's on Disney Junior, so it's got that feel to it, those super simple things, but it's also got deeper Easter eggs for the fans of the movie. So like if you're like an adult watching it with your kid, you can enjoy it just as much. And I think they did a good job with it for what they were presenting, honestly. And I can't believe I'm saying that about a Disney Junior show. I can't. I have to. It's really cool. It's really cool. And I remember when my old theater I used to work at when you were still living in Florida, you and I got to go see it on a classic series. You brought your wife and I brought mine, and we all got to see it in the theater together. And I remember sitting next to you, and just the opening crawl opens up, and like the plane hangar doors open up, and I just look at you, and I'm like, oh my God, dude. Yeah, I never saw it in the theater as a kid. I had the VHS. It was on TV, and I told you I had the little stretchy Bindum figure that I would chew on the fin of the helmet because I was a strange child at 5 or 6 years old, and still at 34, I'm still a strange child. And so we watched the movie and grinning ear to ear, and we get out and I talk about the figure to you, and I was like, I wonder if I could find it. And lo and behold, I'm looking right at it. It's unopened though, and yes, I have not bitten the fin off. But I have the original 91 Bindum figurine of the Rocketeer sitting on my shelf here with all my other Rocketeer goodies. And like you said, there were so many things about that movie that were wonderful. It had elements of adventure and action, and then you had, it touched into the wartime with Nazis and the rocket being a utensil that the government was trying to use in the war against Germany. Howard Hughes built it. And so you had so many great things about this story. And then growing up and reading the comics, and you find out that Jennifer Connelly's character is supposed to be Betty Page. Disney, of course, being Disney, they don't want Betty Page as Cliff Secord's girlfriend. And I fell in love with it, and I've got quite a few of the graphic novels sitting on my shelf, and I still love Billy Campbell's. No one else can have been him. I got to be honest with you, and I'm glad they got an unknown. And sadly, it brought in less of a following when the movie first came out because of it. And it released right around Terminator 2 and Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. I think I've said it on a previous episode. So the attraction of bigger faces in those movies, really took The Rocketeer to a back page and what to go see. But it is such a good movie, such a good film. And if you've never seen it, it's on Disney Plus. If you've got it, watch it. I cannot tell you how enjoyable it is. It's total 90s cheese with some wonderful Art Deco sets, and it holds up. I really think. I mean, it's been 30 years almost, 30 years next year, and it holds up.
That comment
it
about
really
the
does.
kind of Art Deco look and everything, because it's the late 1930s Los Angeles, and Jennifer Connelly's character, whose name is Jenny in the movie, she's an actress, and she's on these sets, and Timothy Dalton is Neville Sinclair. He's kind of like the Errol Flynn type, so he's doing like the big sort of sword fights and all that. So you get like a glimpse into that Hollywood that never was and always will be, which is sort of the mantra of Hollywood studios. So yeah, it's got it all. So it'd be very fitting if it was in GMR, in my opinion, especially in that action adventure scene. If I had to replace something like the Raiders of the Lost Ark, pulling the Ark out, could be the Rocketeer standing on top of the Griffith Observatory next to the big American flag about to go,
Yes.
Yeah, it's a iconic moment, and would fit in well.
Well, the stance, like when they did that shot like comes from the comics. It's so iconic, and that's my favorite. It was my wallpaper on my computer for years, and it's such a good point. And having James Horner's score right behind it before he flies up to the blimp. Yeah, there's so many great moments. My wife and I laugh at the part where Lothar, the little goon thug with the cartoony face,
Tracy movie, yeah.
Neville Sinclair. He looks at, yeah, exactly. I love him so much. But when he visits that guy in the hospital, I won't tell you what happens, but he escapes out of the room before the doctors get in there, and you look outside the window and you see his feet shuffle away. My wife and I make fun of that moment all the time. Where is the rocket? And do like the feet shuffle. It's things like that, and just how it's such a good film. I love it. We got to shut up about it though. I could do a whole podcast on The Rocketeer, which I have friends who have. So, but on your list as well, you have The Shadow. I know you said you wanted to talk about it too. Alec Baldwin in another pulp hero movie from the 90s. That one was directed by Highlander 1 and 2, actually.
I just knew, I just was in love with these kind of early 90s special effects films. That's when I, again, starting to get to that age, 8, 9, 10 years old, where, Jurassic Park was coming out around this time. The Rocketeer had already been out. Shadow came out in 94. So, there were just these phenomenal early 90s movies that were coming out. It was funny. I think if you were to watch The Shadow now, you'd go back and then you'd look at Batman Begins and you'd think, oh, they just ripped off the entire opening of this movie and put it in Batman Begins. But The Shadow even predates Batman. It was a 1930s radio serial, that was on. I do find it interesting because The Untouchables, which was one of my gangster movies or mob movies, was also kind of an early mid-90s film that's based on old radio shows. That one's a true story, Elliot Ness and all that stuff. But no, I love the visuals. This is 1930s New York. So if you watch The Rocketeer, you get the Art Deco 1930s LA. If you watch The Shadow, you get the 1930s Art Deco New York. So you kind of get the best of both worlds, and just some amazing visual effects that were groundbreaking at the time and helped kind of push that evolution forward.
I need to watch it again. I was telling Gabe before he got pulled to his attraction that because he hasn't seen it. I was like, I have it. When quarantine's done, you're coming over and we're watching it. It is such a good film. It really is. It really is. And a lot of people pan it, but it's underrated in my opinion. Underweighted. What am I, Elmer Fudd?
Be very, very quiet. Well, underweighted.
It's underweighted. Oh man. So we're gonna roll into the macabre, the horror, the horrific American Werewolf in London, 1981, John Landis, and this classic. My wife introduced me to this movie around the time we first, probably like the first quarter of our relationship, and I was such a good movie, and it had its wit to it, but it was also pretty scary. And I wasn't used to Landis making a scary movie. I had seen Blues Brothers plenty of times growing up, so this was kind of threw me off guard, honestly, for coming from him.
One of my best friends who lives in Fargo, he was one of my first roommates in my first apartment, and he's a huge horror fan. He does his own, teeth effects. He uses Elginate and all that. He's actually done one of the Nazi werewolf costumes before. He used, special effects makeup and latex and all that to kind of make that.
Was this the same friend that you showed me did the Rorschach mask from Watchmen?
Color changing.
Okay, yeah, you've told me about him before.
So I've never been drawn toward the horror genre. My parents didn't really watch any of the either slasher flicks or even the thrillers. So it was always kind of a genre I shied away from. And then he kind of introduced me to the concept of special effects, makeup, and all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of how I sort of started getting into horror, was more on the special effects side of things. And so one of the first movies that he kind of made me watch, he said, was An American Werewolf in London. He said, it's like the best werewolf movie and one of the best horror movies ever made. And I totally agree. And it still blows me away to this day, the transformation scene that they do in that movie. And, when you go back and you watch your interviews with Rick Baker and stuff, who's supposed to do all this, and it's what are the rules? Well, typically we only do things at night. We do real close-up shots, and they're really quick, kind of cuts and all that kind of stuff. And John Landis said, no, I want to do a full body, middle of the living room, brightly lit transformation. And they were like, you can't do that. And a lot of people may shy away from the goriness of it, or that kind of stuff, but that's what fascinated me and kind of brought me in. And anyway, I love that movie. I think it's got a lot of quirkiness to it, but it's just a marvel of special effects, makeup.
Oh yeah,
I don't think anything else tops that. The Howling is pretty good. I've seen it, but I was introduced to American Werewolf in London first, and so it gets the spots in my heart.
There you go. Now I remember the part where he's laying in the bed and he just kind of, the edit just has it briefly. You can tell that it changes, and he's in the makeup and he's just at you. And I'm just like, oh my God, that was so good. But I love how that transition occurred, because I think that was a dream sequence, if I remember correctly. It's been a while since I've seen it.
It's his first full transformation, is because he's in the middle of the living room, and I think it's to.
Well, I'm thinking.
Yeah.
I'm thinking when he's in the hospital bed, and he's dreaming of a big hospital bed, and he's laying there, and then if you're really keen at seeing these things, you see the brief clip, the brief edit where it's changed, because they did the shot of him being normal, and then they cut it just finely enough to where he's changed right there, and he kind of just awakens and looks at you with that pale face and the yellow eyes, and that scene really jumped at me before seeing the transformation. And I always like that. I'm sure the transformation would probably be the part that you put in the ride too, if you had a part to put in.
I almost feel like you'd have to do a stages or something, but you could also, there's a great little sequence at the end with the London Underground, and it's a guy looking down the escalator, and you see just the creature kind of coming at you. So but the transformation's pretty iconic. I just love a lot of other little tidbits about the movie, again, that I kind of had to learn. So it was a learning experience to kind of get introduced to the horror genre. But the fact that all the songs have the word moon in it, Blue Moon, Bad Moon Rising, all that kind of stuff. And then Michael Jackson saw the movie and then was like, I want to hire that guy to do my Thriller music video. So then John Landis ended up doing that. So I mean, pretty cool movie, and it's got my vote.
Yeah, oh yeah, and the werewolf costume has been used recently. I'm not sure if you caught it. You watched the show that's based on the film What We Do in the Shadows, right? There's an Easter egg in the first season, because they just started their second season, where they run into a pack of werewolves. There's a lot more detail I'd love to deliver right now, but I'm going to cut it short. In one of the scenes, it's a werewolf versus vampire. I wouldn't call it a fight, but a duel, I guess. And the werewolf costume they use is very similar, if not a replica. I don't know if it's the same one, but they're replicating the American Werewolf in London that David Naughton, his character was. So it's the same suit. Like I said, I don't know if it's replica. I don't know if it's the same. Well, they did as much as they could, but it's supposed to be an Easter egg to American Werewolf in London. That I was really pleased as a film fan that they had that Easter egg, because the show is full of Easter eggs with vampires and werewolves and all sorts of things that they've been doing, and I appreciate that they threw that little bit in there.
Show, and yeah, we're into the second season, so yeah, if you watch the movie, definitely first and foremost watch the show. Also, they're not mutually exclusive. You can watch either one of them, but best imbibed if you enjoy both.
I agree. And on my list is What We Do in the Shadows. So maybe someday I'll talk more about that one, because it is highly underrated comedy. I guess you could say horror film. It's more definitely much more comedy than anything. It's hilarious. Out of New Zealand. So we're gonna leave the horror area and American Werewolf in London and go into drama and romance with Casablanca, which is already there. So hooray.
I mean, just real quick, what else can you say about Casablanca? My mom also grew up, my mom's grandparents actually owned the drive-in, or the regular movie theater and the drive-in movie theater in her hometown. So she grew up watching all the older movies from the 40s and 50s as well. So that's where I got my love for the older black and whites and the noirs and that kind of stuff. Casablanca just kind of ranks as its own thing.
It does. And Kingdom of Heaven, the director's cut. I love how you have that notated.
I do have it
notated. Many times at Movie Ride, you would tell me, Kingdom of Heaven, you need to see this movie if you haven't, but you have to see the director's cut. You would always say that to me, and I would laugh because I'm like,
the director's cut
the director's cut,
has like entire plot points that are not in the theatrical version. So it's very much like a character piece. It's a character-driven film. It's Ridley Scott, and he did this one right after he did Gladiator. Mm-hmm. So he was like, well, I mean, he's
him and his director's cuts, man.
These big kind of epics and stuff like
he's
that.
Always
but interestingly, with Kingdom of Heaven, they sent the script to the studio for approval, and the studio said, because there's an entire side plot with Eva Green's character. She has a son. In the theatrical version of the movie, she doesn't even have a child, but in the director's cut, she does, and it's very important, just in terms of the storyline, because it's about it's like the Fourth Crusade or something like that. So Orlando Bloom plays a guy in the UK in England, who gets found by his father, Liam Neeson, who's been a crusader and has a bunch of land in Ibelin, which is, I think, outside of Jerusalem. And so, Orlando Bloom travels all the way there and meets Eva Green. Eva Green's character is the sister of the king of Jerusalem at the time. And it's all about basically trying to keep the peace in Jerusalem between the Christians and the Muslims, the Islamic people who were there at the time, led by Salah ad-Din. And just a phenomenal movie. They got a lot of really big name actors from the Middle East to actually play, Salah ad-Din and the other Muslim characters. And then you just have this phenomenal cast of Orlando Bloom, who is really unlike any other kind of movie he's done before. But you also have David Thewlis, who a lot of Harry Potter fans will know him. He plays Professor Lupin. Yep.
And Wonder Woman too.
Tons of other like Ridley Scott kind of staples. So people that you would have seen either in Gladiator or Black Hawk Down. Nikolai Coster-Waldau, he's in Black Hawk Down, but he's in Game of Thrones as Jaime Lannister. Liam Neeson is in this movie. And it really is a full epic. It's not as tight of a story as Gladiator or as kind of emotionally resonant as Gladiator, but I just think it's a really phenomenal movie, and it's kind of criminally underrated. So the primary story is a real person named Balian, who Orlando Bloom plays, is the individual who actually transferred control of Jerusalem over to the Muslims in the 12th century at the time. And that was a big deal because that whole area was, going back and forth. And it's just a phenomenal time in history, really unique and interesting time in history as well. And I think that Ridley Scott just captured what it would have felt like to actually, be there during that period of time. So big, huge, epic film. And yeah, if you've got the time, watch it. I think it's really, really well made.
2 hours and 24 minutes, I think, is just the theatrical version. So I bet the director's cut's like 3 hours probably.
But there's a number of great scenes.
I've got no issue with
it here. If you wanted to kind of represent like the drama stuff, so Edward Norton is in this movie as the King of Jerusalem when the movie starts, and also based on a real person. The King of Jerusalem at the time was a leper, and he wore bandages and he wore a silver mask. And so Edward Norton's character wears this silver mask, and Jeremy Irons is also in it. Really phenomenal, powerful role. But anyway, there's a really just nice kind of scene of the three of them kind of talking about what it means to be a knight and what it means to be a good knight, and just like protecting your people and that kind of thing. So good message, and I think that would be a fun sequence to show.
Well, as many times as you've told me I've needed to see this movie, I don't think I've still seen this movie, so I need to.
I think you'll be.
You can tell me again. I think so. I'm playing catch up during this downtime with the quarantine. I've watched plenty of movies I haven't seen yet, so that one's gonna probably hit my list soon. But let's get on to your animated favorite, Toy Story. That movie really changed animation, man. I still think it's ahead of its time. The original, anyway.
No, I agree. It may not hold up as well as some of the others, but in the grand scheme of things. But I think when you look at the toys themselves and just the general interactions, environments, like they absolutely nailed that movie. It really blew me away at that time too. You can make an entire animated film on a computer. That was still revolutionary. A revolutionary idea. So the fact that they were able to do it and pull it off, and since then, now having worked for Disney and learned a lot more about the history of Pixar and all that kind of stuff. Now it's just like even more fascinating. Like I'm even more impressed by what they were able to do with that film when it first came out and how they could actually accomplish it. So you look at Pixar, you look at the number of films that they've made and the number of iconic films that they've been able to put out since the early mid to late 90s, and it's just absolutely bewildering the level of creativity and just sheer genius that it took to put these films together. And Toy Story being the Kickstarter for that it's hard to not give this movie enough praise.
I remember it came out right around my birthday in 95, so I was hitting 10 years old when it came out. And I don't think I saw it in the theater. I can't remember if I did or not, but I remember all the toys that came out with this movie. And I was just in awe that it was a movie. I was 10. This movie is about toys? What?
Buzz Lightyear really was like the coolest toy ever when that came out. And they made like a movie version of him when it came out, and I really wanted it, but it was it was expensive, and it was 1995, so I was 12. I don't think my parents were gonna buy it for me, but Disney now makes these signature series versions, and when Toy Story 4 came out, they re-released them. So I got for Christmas, I got Buzz Lightyear. So I've got Buzz Lightyear. Aaron actually has Jessie, and then we also have Bullseye. So
nice.
I'm missing Woody. I don't know how I don't have Woody, but I have Buzz Lightyear, and he is the coolest toy ever. So
yeah, my wife and I, that was one thing that she was into growing up too, Toy Story big time. She was a huge fan of Sid, actually, and so she's got a shirt that she custom made with the skull on it that he wore in the movie. And when we first started dating, there was a picture of hers I came across that was her wearing the Sid shirt in front of Pizza Planet at Hollywood Studios. No, it's such a good movie. When 4 came out, I was kind of surprised because it was like, we don't need this. We already had 3 that broke our hearts, man. And then 4 came out, and as unnecessary as it was still a good movie. And I really enjoyed the plushies, the duck and the other Key and Peele plush characters. They were something else, man.
I almost kind of know already how it's going to make me feel, so I have to like mentally prepare myself for whether or not I'm going to go in and watch it, and we'll get to it eventually. But I'll absolutely love that first one. It set a high bar.
It really did, and the arc that those movies came through, man, something else. What Toy Story scene would you put on the ride or Fantasia? Or you could put, a
I
couple
think it'd
maybe.
be really fun to do like a recreation of Andy's bedroom. I do feel like it would kind of be ripping off Toy Story Midway Mania though, but
I was gonna
so
say,
like in lieu of that, it might be fun to do. You could do like a giant version of the claw machine. And so, like, as the vehicle comes through, you're surrounded by all the aliens. And Buzz and Woody could be in there too, and the clock could be like a big thing that comes down right before you get into the final, scene or whatever. Just kind of as you're passing through. I think that'd be a unique sequence to put in. Make you toy sized for a few seconds.
Yeah, it would be really fun. Disney, if you're listening, we've got ideas, man. I was gonna say too, since Toy Story Land's right next door, and that's supposed to be Andy's room / backyard or whatever, you should have
there's an idea. You could do that would be like with the Binford toolbox and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Or maybe that should go under the horror part of the ride.
Buzz wears Mrs. Havisham or whatever is, I forget the persona he made.
Yeah.
His apron and his one arm.
Yep. So we're going to ride into where Oz would be. And since comedy wasn't a big theme on the ride, I always use the Oz area to kind of bring in the comedy area just so we can have a place to talk about it. And your favorite comedy is Pineapple Express, and I don't think that's appropriate for the ride at all, but we'll talk about it.
That's funny. So I was saying, I was talking to you obviously before we really got started, and I was saying like my top 5 of like all of a lot of these would kind of change, movies coming in and out, and I wouldn't necessarily like say like, oh, Pineapple Express is my favorite comedy of all time or anything like that, but it is a hilarious movie. Like from the moment it starts, like it starts with this hilarious moment of Bill Hader, who's like supposed to be smoking a joint for the first time, and he's in the army and they're trying to like be all serious about doing testing, and he's like pretending to be like jazz scatting 1940s kind of guy. But then it jumps in. You've got Seth Rogen, you've got James Franco, who they've got amazing chemistry. They're hilarious by themselves, and they're even funnier together. But the thing that I love about it is that they become like these quintessential action heroes as the movie goes on. I mean, there's literally a massive gunfight at the end of the movie where they're like 1980s commandos almost kind of thing. So it doesn't take itself too seriously, but at the same time, it kind of approaches the relationships and stuff in a very like authentic manner. So it's a really funny movie. It's quirky. It's hilarious. I think it's good. So check it out if you've never seen it. But I understand it. It's probably not for everybody.
Oh no, not for everyone. But I can definitely say 2 more that you have on this list: Slapshot, which is a favorite of mine, and Spaceballs. I think Spaceballs would be an appropriate.
I think so too. Yeah, no.
It could have some appropriate parts.
Of, amazing scenes that you could do. I think it'd be hilarious to have an animatronic of Dark Helmet and Colonel Sanders, where the tour guide and the two of them, they do like the, he's like, oh, Spaceball is the videotape. Well, we're looking at now, sir. And it's they're watching the movie as it's playing out. Everything that's happening now is happening now. What happened to then? We missed it. When? Just now. Go back to then. When? We can't. Why? So I think it'd be funny if you could get the tour guide to sort of interact with that. But I would almost just picture like the bridge of Spaceball 1, the big spaceship, because that's where you've got just some of the more funny kind of interactions and stuff, especially with Rick Moranis as Dark Helmet. That movie just surprises me. I think every time I watch it, there's little things that, whether it's just like a face a character makes in the background or something that will just set me off whenever I'm watching it. And also highly quotable. So as far as a movie ride memory goes, Jose Almeida, who I'm hoping is listening to these podcasts, he and I don't know that we really, I don't know that he and I really had like a long conversation that didn't just devolve into quoting Mel Brooks movies. And Young Frankenstein was typically at the top of that list. So yeah, I would put it up there. And
nice.
If I had to put it in the ride, that's the one I would choose.
That would be a great spot too, because like you said, we're in the movie. No, we're there. What? There? No, go back. What? No, there. It would be funny, and then you have just the ship around you, and then all the people at their consoles are looking at you like,
And then
what?
and then
That
at
would
the
be-
end, when you're ready to
that would
go,
be
you go
pretty
to
funny.
ludicrous speed, and that brings you into finale.
Yes, but ludicrous speed is like a mile per hour.
We get to redesign it. We can put in parts of the rock and roller coaster if we want to. We can do whatever we want.
I was gonna say, yeah, we could go fast if we want to. We already had somebody go Back to the Future. We'll go 88 miles per hour, but really just one.
We've gone to Plaid.
Oh man, we've gone to Plaid. Yes. Oh, I forgot about that. So good, Dave. It was such a pleasure having you on the show, man. And I feel bad Gabe got pulled to another area, but it's been wonderful talking about the movies and getting to talk about Movie Ride and reconnecting with that. And can't believe that today is 31 years since Disney's Hollywood or MGM Studios, excuse me, I keep calling it Hollywood Studios, but
Disney
MGM and the Great Movie Ride were brought to the world. That's sad. I didn't get to see it till 10 years ago for the first time, honestly.
Well, when we get into my other movies that have inspired me, so I got to go to Disney World for the very first time when I was about 9 or 10. My mom brought my sister, my brother, and I each individually when we were around that age. And of all the rides that literally just like blew me away, the Great Movie Ride was always number one. And it was always the first thing I wanted to go and do. And in terms of capturing movie magic, like in real life, like right in front of your eyes, the ride certainly did that. So when I eventually made it to Disney and found out that I was going to Great Movie Ride, it was literally a dream come true. So happy to have been a part of its life. And if I ever got a chance to reincarnate it, I would probably think a lot harder about the movies that I would include aside from just my list here. So glad that I could be a part of it. Glad I could
just that, I mean,
flavor into what GMR could be. So
no, I feel for the time that this ride released, the movies were on point. And I mean, even to 2017, they were. I wish Disney gave that ride more love. It deserved more of an upkeep than it got. And even with the TCM update and they added things in, it needed a little bit more flair that they weren't giving it. And now it's a railroad, which, I get it. I get what they did, but it'll always be near and dear to my heart.
I agree.
So.
And yeah, I mean, they gave it a couple of coats of paint over its life cycle, but I think if they'd have done a full recreation or kind of started from the ground up again, but yeah, it's hard to beat. I mean, the thing was massive. It was the size of 2 sound stages, and you could have 14,000 people a day come through on a busy day, sometimes more, depending on the day, and it survived for a long time compared to a lot of other attractions. And I feel fortunate that I got to kind of say goodbye on my own terms. I left Disney about a year, not even a year, I think, before they closed the attraction and announced that it was going away. So, I feel for the cast that were working and who just dedicated their spirit and everything else that they gave to the ride. It was one of the things that really made it what it was. It could have been very different if people, treated it differently or behaved differently around it. But there was definitely a spirit to it. That was the cast members that worked it, and they could bring everything else to life.
Well, thank you again for joining us, Dave, and thank you all for listening to the Great Movie Radio Show. Check out our new website, the new www.thegmrshow.com. Dave's pretty face will be joining the site shortly. Again, honestly, because you're on there under the crew, because you're our voice talent. A different picture of your pretty face will be on there, and so many other things are on there. We have our wonderful sponsors who help bring our show to what it is. And with today being the 31st birthday, check out, it's small now, but it will grow, the archive, the pictures and memories that we're putting together for our 1989 to 2017 page. That is completely dedicated to the Great Movie Ride. So check that out. Check us out soon. We'll have another episode. We don't know when yet, but we wanted to have one celebrating the ride today. So thanks for listening, and we'll be with you all soon. And be safe during this time.
The Great Movie Radio Show is recorded in Orlando, Florida. You can visit our website at www.thegmrshow.com. Art direction and logo design provided by Mr. Bayless. Voiceover and intro work provided by Dave Feske and Joe Erickson. You can find our podcast on multiple platforms such as Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and many more. Music provided by the YouTube Audio Library. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram. Just search The Great Movie Radio Show or The GMR Show. This has been The Great Movie Radio Show. We hope you enjoy your day, and we'll see you at the movies. The stuff dreams are made of. Goodbye, everyone.
You have been listening to a GMR radio production.